I'm the founder of Bärta, a product made from Swedish organic split peas that we sprout and ferment, and then we marinate them into different products. Well, it was a culinary epiphany a few years ago. I was experimenting in my home kitchen with fermenting different kinds of food. And then I tried this traditional mold fermentation and combined with sauerkraut and yogurt made from cashew nuts. And it was just too good to not do something with. So that's how I started. And I started a food truck. And then from the food truck, it kind of transitioned into this company that makes products for retail and food service. We have burgers and chili and lime chunks and the plain product that people can flavor themselves. And then we have a smoked product that is quite new, so it's only sold in a few stores so far. We sell the product to retail in Sweden, and it's both small local stores and the big retailers, and also to restaurants.
So please, Pia, share your screen and unmute yourself.
Yeah, do you hear me? Great. Let's see. That one. And can you see the presentation? Great. Okay. Yeah. So Pia, I'm Pia, and yeah. So a lot of the things I planned to say in the beginning are already in the film, so I might skip a few slides maybe. Yeah. So I make the Bärta product made from sprouted and fermented organic split pea. And we're located here. Let's see. Here in the south of Sweden, Karlshamn. I'm gonna give you the short story of how it began and why, and then I'm gonna talk more about how we upscaled or how we do it now, and also taking the product to the market. In 2014, I lived in Stockholm, worked in the arts sector, and experimented with cooking and fermenting in my home kitchen in the spare time. And this led to the culinary epiphany that made me start the food truck with organic food, organic vegan fermented food. And then the main dish in all the dishes I served was this split pea tempeh. And tempeh is a traditional solid state fungal fermentation from Indonesia, which is usually based on soybean, but I used the split pea. When I made all the food in my home kitchen on the 3rd floor without any elevator, and served it in the food truck. And of course, that meant a lot of hours in the food truck, and that gave me also many ideas on how to further develop the traditional fermentation process to make the product even healthier, tastier, and with a better texture. In 2016, I got funding from the Swedish Innovation Agency to experiment. So I had a few months with a lot of different tests in my home kitchen still. And some of these tests should never be done again, but some are the first steps towards what today is Bärta. I didn't have a specific plan for what I wanted to create or what would be the next step. It was a very exploratory testing. And I didn't take into consideration what it would cost to produce it, or even if it would be achievable on a larger scale. When developing the products, I wanted to challenge common beliefs that people in Sweden have against vegan food. Like, it doesn't taste good, everything's made from soy, it's full of additives, nothing's organic or Swedish. I wanted to prove them wrong. So it had to be delicious, organic ingredients without additives, and I used a split pea. It also had to be products that were easy to explain and intuitive to use, and more or less fail safe. So even a pretty lousy home chef should be able to make a decent dish with the products. And not meat-like, but plate-like. So even I'm not trying to imitate meat in flavor and texture, but it has to be logical for people to how to use them. So it's not a completely new product that you have to invent a whole new culinary kitchen to bake. From being vegan most of my life, I knew what products were out there and I knew what was possible to achieve. And from trying products that have been launched recently, I sometimes get the impression that someone that never eats and doesn't like vegetarian food is given the task to create a vegetarian option to meat. And then they start to look for ingredients that can imitate meat in texture and flavor. And then they're content with when they reach some kind of meat-like resemblance. But they never expect the copy to be as good as the original. From my own cooking experience and from dining with friends and at good restaurants, I knew that vegan food can be delicious, and I wasn't about to settle for a bleak copy. Yes. After the project was finished, I had a few ideas for products, but was not possible to really try them before I had a proper production line. The money I got from the government was supposed to be used for consultants, lab testing and stuff like that. And I couldn't use it for actual equipment. And that's the case, of course, with almost every kind of funding. And in one way that makes sense, but it also makes it really difficult for startups who doesn't already have a factory to overcome the gap from idea to prototype. Around this time, I started the business lab program at Uppsala Innovation Center, which is an incubator for startups. And through them, I got funding for doing a market analysis and developing the brand. I did an inventory of the markets, looking for ways to produce my products, but I found that there were no existing production lines that would create the product I wanted to make. So I had to decide, should I get a lot of money and hire consultants to make an upscale production line, or do I get some money and start small? And I chose the second path. I looked for space to rent near Stockholm, but I didn't find any landlord that was willing to rent to me. It's not easy to find people who want to rent to food production. It's expensive and complicated, and it's much easier they'd rather have someone who just needs storage. But by chance, I ran into the owner of this building where we are now, and he saw the potential in the product and was willing to host us here. I found some local investors and raised 200,000 euros. And for that, we bought the equipment, which is mostly used restaurant equipment. If I had chosen to go big scale immediately, it would have cost at least 10 times that. and it probably wouldn't have worked because there are so many unknown factors in the upscaling process, and it's better to do it one step at a time. But we should have started with at least 400,000. Then it would have been possible to employ myself and maybe one other person, and I wouldn't have had the constant stress of bankruptcy. And here's some other advice I would have given myself. Start small, but get enough money. Find people to ask about everything you don't know anything about. Choose a design bureau that knows food and retail. And this is something we did, and that has been a big part of what has made Bärta a success. It's a really important step. Yeah, and then we have a couple of unsolved issues that are also really important to know about. As a startup company, it's really hard to be able to become a customer to the big companies. You're too small to be worth it for them. And that has made it difficult to find ingredients, to find the packaging material, machineries, everything. They don't even answer your emails. And also for me, as a woman, it's been difficult to get into the restaurant business. Some restaurants are very positive, but you can feel like the male kitchen atmosphere makes it hard for them to trust me when it comes to cooking. In June 2018, we moved the production from my home kitchen to our new kitchen in Karlshamn, and I started finalizing the recipes. At that time, we had no employees and one customer. I was lucky enough to have a friend who's head of quality for a big food company in Sweden, and he did our whole food safety plan and plan for organic production. When we had all the necessary permits and certificates and set the recipes, we had to photograph the products, wait for lab results, set the copy for the packaging before the bureau could finalize the packaging design, and then it's a few months before you actually get the packaging. So we got them in November 2018. And these are our first 3 products. It's Bärta chili and lime chunks, the plain version, and the burger. Yeah, and we got them in November 2018, and the week after that, we attended Nordic Organic Food Fair in Malmö, where the burger won first prize. We also got our first customers from the fair, and a few weeks later, Bärta was in a couple of stores in Sweden. At that time, it was only me and my mom working, actually making all the products. So we had to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And that made it really difficult to find time to do the actions to get us out of that situation, which was to get more money and employ people. So again, start with a little more money, not to, so you know you have enough to actually launch when the demand is there. After that, we continued selling directly to stores, growing organically 1 store at a time. And also adapting our machineries and process as we went along. In March this year, we were listed at Bärta, which is at ICA, which is the biggest retail in Sweden. And now you can find our products in a little more than 200 stores in Sweden. We're now 7 people employed, 4 in production, 1 in communication, the CEO and I. Since the beginning, we marketed Bärta almost exclusively through social media. So we have our own channels where we show recipes and also raise questions about the food system. And we've done a few cooperations with influencers, and that has been very cost effective. you get the chance to show so much more from a corporation like that than from a simple ad in the newspaper. And we've already only worked with people who already love the product, so we know it's a credible corporation, that people trust them when they say that it's good. The next step is to continue the upscaling, again raise more capital, and we start looking at exporting as well. Yeah, so that's what I plan to say.
Yes, thank you, Pia. I can see there is a question in the chat from Julita. Who is the most valuable? Oh, it disappeared, sorry. Who is the most valuable partner now and in the beginning?
It's extremely difficult to say because there are many, but maybe once again I would say the design bureau, because they didn't just have experience from working only in retail. They're like retail nerds, just going into stores, looking at packaging, communication, things like that, and they know everything from how messages are perceived on the big scale, but also how the actually plastic works for the person picking the product from the box up into the shelf. And they also had a lot of contacts in the packaging industry, so they were able to find someone who was willing to print our products. So maybe again the design bureau actually.
Pia, can you please stop sharing the screen?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Just to remind you about that. You mentioned that in some you mentioned the incubator. What was, how important was incubator for you?
Well, I would say it's been both bad and good. I think it gives us some credibility when talking to investors and a few contacts, but also they follow kind of a set path for how startups should work. One of the things they kept saying, and I think everyone has heard many times, is that, okay, to find investors, you need to have a team. Investors invest in teams, not ideas. And that actually set me back quite a lot because I was alone. And I thought, okay, so no one will want to invest in this. And maybe if I had heard that, I wouldn't have hesitated. So it can be both good and bad, I would say.
Any more questions for Pia?
I have one.
Yep. Robin, yes, please.
Thank you so much for sharing, Pia. My name is Robin, and I'm an agroecologist from SLU. And I turned vegan 2 years ago. So I feel what you felt is missing in the marketplace. And I'm curious if you're seeing other companies adopt similar principles now. I'm talking about producing something that is Swedish, organic, and doesn't have all these artificial ingredients, something that is more pure.
Yeah, there are a couple of few small-scale tempeh producers using split pea, lupins, but maybe not really going into this retail sector, still staying very exclusive and high-end. So I would say that we are more closer to like the meat substitutes. And I don't think anyone else is doing really that. And organic is not a big question in the vegetarian market now.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? No? Okay. Oh, that was Susanna, yes.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just like to ask you about the fermentation process to Bärta. Why do you use the fermentation?
Well, otherwise it wouldn't be a product. It kind of creates the product. If you were just about to, like wanted to use the peas and make something with that, that would be a traditional pea burger, and that it wouldn't stick together, it wouldn't have any texture, it wouldn't have the advanced flavor. So fermenting the product is not something extra, it's the product. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pia.
Thank you
for your interesting presentation.